Hello there. My name is Monica Burns, and welcome to Technology Essentials and Education. Today's episode is titled Fostering Global Connections Through Literacy and Technology, and I'm joined by a special guest, Amber Peterson. Now, I've been connected with LitWorld, where Amber is the Chief Program Officer for over a decade now. I've always been inspired by the work that they do, and I even spent some time with them working with one of their programs as part of my doctoral work, as for my dissertation. So I love everything that they do, spend a lot of time with their team, in their office, out in the field, and programming with students and families. And so their commitment to storytelling and technology to bring people together, particularly students or young people together, is something that they do across the globe. So today, I'm chatting with Amber Peterson, who I mentioned is the Chief Program Officer at LitWorld, all about how educators can use technology from really simple tools. We're counting pencil and paper, right, as a form of technology in our conversation today, all the way to AI powered platforms, maybe things that help with translation to connect people across the world, really with this goal of connecting people, right, in various places, creating meaningful global connections. And that's what our conversation is really all about today. So when you talk to, when you hear this conversation of me talking to Amber today, you'll hear how LitWorld connects kids as pen pals from different continents, how they facilitate read-alouds in lots of different places online that reach millions of people. We talk a little bit about World Read Aloud Day, which is one of their signature events that they do every year. And we also go beyond that, listening in to stories like a read aloud, to how students can share their stories using digital tools. So whether you are looking to bring more of a global perspective to your work, looking at new ways to think about storytelling and read alouds, or finding some creative ways to collaborate with educators and students in different parts of the world, this conversation is a great one. Amber has lots of practical ideas and examples. Let's get into the conversation. This episode is brought to you by Jotform. Jotform provides an all-in-one solution to streamline administrative tasks, enhance community engagement, and foster innovation. Using their no-code drag-and-drop forms and workflows, your teams can securely collect and store data, automate tasks, and collaborate on team resources. Educational institutions are also eligible for a 30% discount on Jotform Enterprise. Head to their website to learn more. Jotform.com/enterprise/education. Welcome to the podcast. I am so excited to chat with you today, Amber, about all things global collaborations and connections, what we can be thinking about in EdTech spaces related to all of that. But before we jump in, can you share with listeners a little bit, what is your role in education? What does your day-to-day look like?
Absolutely. Thank you for this conversation. It's always such a pleasure to speak with you. My name is Amber Peterson. I am the Chief Program Officer for LitWorld. Um, I oversee all of our um, uh, partnerships and programs. LitWorld works with organizations all over the world to create spaces for storytelling, for literacy exploration, for sharing, and technology plays a big role in making that possible. So I'm super excited to talk to you about that today.
Yeah, and I've been connected with LitWorld for, gosh, over a decade now, and it's been so wonderful to follow all of the great work that you're doing. And we think about global connections and what that looks like when technology comes into play. in a world that often feels divided, both from, geographical barriers, right, different ideas people might hold on to or values that they have, how is LitWorld using technology to create a sense of global belonging among children who may never meet in person?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great question. And I think LitWorld has always used technology to create an idea or a feeling of community. Our
Mhm.
work is global, and that means we need to think creatively about what it means to bring people together. And that's happened in a lot of ways. From the very beginning of our work, we used digital spaces to forge and maintain relationships with our international partners. In the early days, that was through email and Skype, and more
Mhm.
recently through Google Meets and Zoom and WhatsApp. Through our programming, we try to create a common language for kids and communities to share with each other and to connect with each other, whether it's through displaying heart maps, something that people create in our programs. We display them through our social media and collect them from people all over the world, or amplifying kids' stories about belonging or friendship or curiosity or any one of the seven strengths that we talk about a lot in our programs. We use technology to connect kids as pen pals,
Mhm.
allowing a lit kid in Rwanda to meet a lit kid in Colombia via video chat. And, we've been able to help forge real sustaining relationships across time and place via those means. Our work has always been about making sure that young people have platforms for their voices and
Mhm.
for their stories, and to provide them with an audience that they might not otherwise have access to. But one thing I'll say is, technology has a very broad definition. I think a lot of times
Mhm.
we think immediately of machinery or digital tools, but the pencil is a form of technology.
Mhm.
Paper is a technology, and all of those types of technology help us to connect, to interact with the world and with each other in different uh, innovative ways. And so while we embrace and digital tools and platforms, I think all of these technologies are in the service of bringing people together, helping them to understand the world. So whether we're recording our stories on paper to be
Mhm.
preserved and shared, or using AI to translate
Mhm.
conversations into multiple languages simultaneously. I think our goal is always to figure out how to make sure that people, real people are being heard and connecting.
And those are such great examples of different types of technology, right? All the way from pencils to using AI to make things just more accessible for students, for children in different parts of the world, and really make sure that their voice is heard by a large audience. And so, for places that might have some limitations when it comes to the types of technology they have access to, how do you facilitate global collaboration in areas where that the digital tech might be limited or where the internet might be, unreliable or just inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, definitely something that we grapple with as an organization working in so many very disparate places around the world. And I think our main goal is to always meet people where they are. There are so many different types of technology that people
Mhm.
have access to. And so, for example, WhatsApp
Yeah.
is a tool that works in so many different places. And
Hmm.
so maybe instead of having video chats, we are just having text conversations over WhatsApp, using email, using snail mail in some spaces.
Yeah.
Radio has been a great tool, not just for us being able to connect with our partners, but for our partners to be able to connect with their communities. I think over the pandemic, we had to get very innovative about what it meant to
Hmm.
bring people together. And so, whether it was broadcasting something over whatever media a community had access to, or delivering Lit Club materials and resources via mailbox,
Yeah.
and putting paper into people's mailboxes. I think we always try to figure out what tools people are have accessible, and what people are comfortable with. I think a big part of our goal is always to think about how we're transferring the ownership of these resources and the pedagogy that we
Mhm.
have to the spaces that we're working with, and vice versa, helping to transfer things from one community to another. So I think by scaling our pedagogy,
Mhm.
we are offered a lot more flexibility in what it looks like to get from us to our partners to the kids and the communities that we're ultimately trying to reach.
And that flexibility is crucial when you have people who are in many different types of situations, accessing different types of technology, the internet component. I love that you mentioned the broadcasting or leveraging radio, like what the media is, right, in a particular area that you're supporting. And another thing I would imagine could be a hurdle in, in general, but then maybe, the tech can come in here and help out of it, right, is time zones. All right, and that could be a hurdle. So, what are some, and I know from my work with you all that you are working with people who are in different time zones, right, in lots of different places. So, what are some of, the most effective ways you've seen technology used asynchronously? That's a term we used a lot during the pandemic when people maybe were logging in at their own time, maybe video messaging or even shared digital boards to keep a global conversation going.
I mean, that's a great question. And I actually just had a call this morning with a team member in Rwanda, which was
Mhm.
4 o'clock for them,
Yeah.
10 a.m. for me.
Mhm.
Um, so I think there's that flexibility that's just required when
Yeah,
you're
well,
working
of
in a
course,
global
right?
space. Some 6 a.m. calls for us, some 9 a.m. calls, I mean 9 p.m. calls for
Mhm.
other folks. But I do think that, yeah, you're right. There's so many tools that allow us to have that conversation going continuously.
Mhm.
Our social media, our website, these are tools that don't have time zones really.
Yeah.
They allow us to be constantly continuing that conversation, to be posting independently around a shared hashtag from our partners,
Mhm.
where maybe they're answering one particular question that allows everybody to kind of see those results. Um, it is, posting things in WhatsApp and knowing that people are going to be
Mhm.
responding at different times. It is, understanding that we are a hub for work.
Mhm.
Things are happening in real time on the ground in different places, and we are reporting out, we're sharing, um, we're creating international coalition of people who are learning from each other and continuing to spread the work at different paces.
Yeah.
Um, so making things accessible, um, keeping flexibility in not just what we're reporting, but how we're reporting it, I think
Mhm.
is key.
A quick note from the presenter of today's episode, Jotform. Jotform lets you build a form in minutes. Student survey forms, homework submission forms, online quizzes, and so much more. You can start from scratch, or if you want to get a head start, check out their collection of free form templates designed with teachers, schools, and districts in mind. Learn more about Jotform and how educational institutions can get 30% discount on Jotform Enterprise. Head to their website to learn more. Jotform.com/enterprise/education. Yeah, and just knowing that there may be a common place where things are going. That's that hashtag. It's that group's WhatsApp, messaging that they're doing, and building that understanding within a group to say, like, this is how we're sharing. It's not all, on a Zoom call or something like that. And, with all the activities that you mentioned heart maps, which are one of my favorite ways for people to share a bit about themselves and build some community. Read alouds are such a core work, part of the work that you all do. And why is the simple act of a read aloud such an effective tool for global collaboration, maybe compared to other types of digital communication or ways to connect?
Yeah, I mean, you've been a part of the LitWorld community for a long time. You know how incredibly important the read aloud is
Yeah. Hmm.
to us. Um, I think the read aloud is such a beautifully intimate act. It is so powerful for so many things. I think the studies show over and over and over again that read alouds are impactful for brain development, for language
Mhm.
acquisition, for literacy development, for social development. And so being able to um, amplify these experiences, I think is incredible. And the read aloud is something I think particularly well suited for digital spaces.
Yeah.
So you can read aloud over video chat. You can
Mhm.
record a read aloud. We partner with an organization called Story Voice that allows a read aloud to be shared with hundreds of millions of people at the exact same time. And so this very intimate act of reader and listener becomes something that uh, can be amplified exponentially. So I think you know reading aloud is particularly well suited for global collaboration because you get
Mhm.
to create those very intimate relationships with so many different people. And it's relatively simple. All you got to do is read aloud.
And it's such an engaging way to connect, with a group. There's the storytelling element, there may be visuals, right, that go
Oh yeah.
along with it. And it's a way to model, right, best practices for a reader. You can build, right, plenty of community around a story. And there's so much you can do after, you've read a text together, right? Talking about a character's decision, creating your own ending to that story. Right? There's just so many things students can do as they dive into a shared text. And I wonder, as you kind of think back over the course of this calendar year, the school year, was there one specific, maybe digital interaction or moment from your work this year that really captured that spirit of global collaboration?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna raise you two
Yeah, I'll take
experiences.
them. Uh-huh.
The first would be World Read Aloud Day, which is
Uh-huh.
LitWorld's um, annual celebration of reading aloud. And we talked about how incredibly important that is. It's the first Wednesday of every February. And on that day, we get people who are engaging in that act literally all over the world. Millions of people are reading aloud on that day. And there really is an incredible sense of community that's created because of that. But I'll say the second kind of interaction that we have that really captures that global collaboration feeling is a new initiative that we've started called the Memory Keepers Project.
Mhm.
And the Memory Keepers Project is all about promoting intergenerational conversation and um, memory keeping, the idea that our stories are important and that we can learn so much from each other when we create space to actually hear stories
Uh-huh.
and memories that are being shared. And I think this is a particularly meaningful and powerful kind of initiative moment for me because it is a testament to what global collaboration looks like in real time.
Mhm.
The Memory Keepers campaign is something that is developing and developing constantly, and it's developing because we're able to um, test it and get feedback and shift it from partners all over the world at the same time. So we send out curriculum. Folks are doing curriculum. They give us feedback. We get stories. We adjust it. We try it again,
Mhm.
and the fact that we're able to see a project happening in Rwanda and Colombia and New York and India all at the same time, I think is a fascinating testament to what a global spirit of collaboration can look like. So
And what a wonderful way to, right, honor a community's history, to hear stories, to tell stories, and even for students, right, to just understand that they're growing into this story of their life, right,
oh
and
yeah.
say that they might be, on the other side of that someday, right, sharing a memory, sharing a story, right, and I'm sure they have plenty of stories to share, even if they have not been right experiencing things for so long. And kind of gets me to my next question for you, which is, how is lit world helping kids move from just listening to stories online to creating and sharing their own digital narratives with the world?
Yeah, no, it's I think the most important question, massively, of all. I think all of LitWorld stories are children's stories.
Mhm.
Yeah, we create the space for kids to not just listen to stories, but to analyze them, to play with them, to debate them, and ultimately to create them. And our media, our website, these are really just the amplification of those experiences. And I think the invitation to others whose stories may not often be told or recognized on the world stage to share their own. I think this invitation to share your story is often the first step to advocacy. It's the first step to civic engagement. It's the first step to global citizenship.
Mhm.
And I think it's especially important for marginalized people and for women. I think these
Mhm.
voices and these stories literally change the world. And I think our work is really just about making sure that young people, understand that,
Mhm.
get to experiment with that, and provide some scaffolding for people to do that.
No, I mean, so many different ways for them to capture their stories. And you mentioned before, too, some students might jump on video, right, and share that way. Some might jump into like a text based experience, or maybe are just, turn in talking to that person next to them, right, if they're in a shared space. So, I love the flexibility, right, that LitWorld offers throughout their programming around not just right a read aloud experience, which is so powerful, but also that complementary, tell your story right experience, right, at the same time, really fostering that sense of belonging and sharing, and really honoring all of the voices, including some of those marginalized voices that may not feel like their stories are important, or may not feel like they have an audience right for their stories, and now we're able to really capture them in special ways. So as we, think forward into this year, into upcoming school years and such, for people who are interested in capturing their stories, right, and having more global collaborations as part of their work, and connecting with you all, where can they connect with LitWorld? Where can they learn more about your work and the projects that you have going on right now?
Yeah, so first, of course, visit our website, litworlds.org. There's a lot of information about some of our partnerships, the work that's going on in different parts of the world right now. Follow us on social media. We're at LitWorld on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and at LitWorld Says on X. And stay tuned as we continue to develop the Memory Keepers project. We have a kind of official campaign launch on June 1st. It'll happen here in New York City, but amplified all over the world, as
Mhm.
all of our work always is. So save that date. And yeah, check us out. I think there's lots that people can take from the work.
Wonderful. Well, Amber, thank you so much for your time, for the different activities and resources, and just big ideas that you shared for anyone who's curious about fostering more global collaborations this year.
Thank you. Always so fun. So fun.
It was so much fun chatting with Amber today about all the things that LitWorld is doing and all of her fantastic tips to foster global collaboration. So let's finish up this episode with a few key points to hopefully make this EdTech integration a bit easier. First, use technology from WhatsApp to pen and paper in the mail to meet global partners where they are. Read-alouds are uniquely well suited for digital collaboration because of their intimate and accessible nature. Help students move beyond listening to stories by inviting them to create, analyze, and share their own narratives. Sharing personal stories can be a first step towards advocacy, civic engagement, and global citizenship for young people. Remember, you can stay connected with Amber and the LitWorld team after today's episode. You've got plenty of links to explore in the description for our conversation today. And I'm so glad you had a chance to tune in and to think a little bit about how to foster global connections through literacy and technology this year. A big thank you to Jotform, the presenter of today's episode. To learn more about Jotform and how educational institutions can get a 30% discount on Jotform Enterprise, head to jotform.com/enterprise/education.